Hello, everybody. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us for this seminar. It's our fourth session on the seminar about lab schools, and I'm delighted today to welcome Lenka Kretskova. We met during the project Lab Schools Europe a few years ago, and some of the teachers of your school also came to spend a week at Paris Lab School, do some shadowing, and we hope that we'll be able to develop further exchange. And when I met you, I think you had just started or were about to start, so I'm really excited to see the development of the school. And also, I'm very interested in the approach that you're going to present, because you're going to focus on the cognitive aspect of learning. And for that, having Stephanie with us, who is a researcher in cognitive sciences, would be fantastic. So, Stephanie, don't hesitate to take the floor at any time. And thank you once more, Lenka, and the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining even at this time, just before Christmas. So I can imagine that everyone's very busy. It's actually my first time I'm in an office at school. Otherwise, all the other seminars which were held in the last weeks, I was somewhere on my way on a train, or somewhere in a city, always on my mobile. But this time I'm at school. On the other hand, our lessons have just finished, and I have to apologize. You may hear some noise in the background because the kids are just behind the door and in the classes everywhere around. And there, behind my door, there are the youngest ones, so they will be maybe quite quite cheerful, I would say, because tomorrow is their last day of school before Christmas, and they are all very excited about this period of time. So I apologize if you hear some noises, some kids' noises, but it's just as it is here at school. Anyway, I will first share my presentation, and I'll start talking about the topic. But I'll be happy if you just interrupt me and comment or ask or add your ideas whenever you wish, because it's actually lovely to have Stephanie here, and I believe that he will have a lot to say or to add to what I'm going to talk about. Well, first of all, I'd like to briefly introduce our school, because well, this is how I got here into this nice company of people from all around Europe. But then, as Pascale has already said, the main topic of my today's talk should focus on cognitive approach to education, which is something what we really value here at school, and what is also quite connected to what I do, because it's actually quite funny, because I think we have somehow similar history with Pascale as we discuss it, because I'm also an educational psychologist. I actually I used to work in university here in Prague, but I quit my work there. And we established our school in 2019, which was quite close to the time when Pascale established her school. And well, my profession obviously impacts how the school is organized, or what I can bring to the school from my perspective and from my professional background. So that's really the reason why cognitive approach to education is important and crucial in the whole curriculum of our school. Well, first, it's difficult to translate the name of our school. So I tried to, sorry, I'm trying to switch to the next slide, and it's not working, but yeah, now here I am. Well, so I just tried to think about the way how to explain or how to translate the word into English, which actually means something like recognition, or becoming aware of something, getting to know, thinking and contemplating, or thinking and learning. There are many options how to how to translate the name of our school. The main aspect of the name in Czech, this is something what we have to emphasize quite often, is that this is a gerund. So it's a continuous cognitive process. It describes this continuous process. It's not anything what is static. There is a similar word in Czech which refers to more static situation, but we really want to emphasize in the name that thinking and learning or getting to know something is a continuous process which never basically ends. And first of all, just briefly about ourselves, maybe I should say why we established Lab School here in Prague, actually, because we are two co-founders of the Lab School, laboratory school. And we are both psychologists, and we both actually also work at a non-governmental organization where we work with people who have different learning difficulties. And my colleague and I have been involved in this NGO for about 20 years. And as we have worked with a lot of people, we often heard a lot of stories, and usually the stories were not really very nice. How the kids, the adolescent students were treated in their schools just because they had some specific issues, some learning difficulties, or maybe we could say that they were just neurodiverse. They just had something what was special about them, but the neurodiversity just made them or caused difficulties at their schooling process. And we used to fight quite a lot for our clients, and we helped them a lot, and we also went through all difficult situations with them. So one day, many years ago, we decided that we would like to establish a school where we could show that there are other options how to teach children and how to treat children at school. And we just thought that it was useless only criticizing the others, but we would like to show and prove that there are options how to do it differently. So that was one of our starting points, quite idealistic, I would say. And then it took many years until we established the laboratory school. Meanwhile, between our decision actually appeared and we really started the school, I actually joined the laboratory school in Brno, or I joined the people who somehow participated in establishing the laboratory school in Brno here in the Czech Republic, which was actually the first laboratory school here. And I was in I am still in close contact with them, and we cooperate a lot. That's actually also how we got in contact with Pascale, because she's in close contact with people from Brno, and I'm in close contact with them. So our journeys just got somehow interconnected. And as they founded laboratory school in Brno, actually 3 years before our school was founded, we just decided that we can follow the same trajectory, the same track. We can we share the same ideas. We have same visions how to innovate the education, how to participate in the whole educational field. So that was the reason why we decided to establish specifically a laboratory school, not just a school, but a laboratory school. And this is how it all started, which was actually in 2019 when we actually opened our laboratory school. We are a private school, which is actually somehow linked to the situation here in the Czech Republic. If you want to establish a school, well, you can either negotiate with our local educational authorities, and they can just they can guarantee that you can become headmaster of some school, or maybe they establish the school and they just nominate certain people who can be in the management of the school. Or the other option is that you really establish a private school, which actually means that we get some funding from the state, but it's lower than state schools. And parents who actually apply for a place at our school have to pay a school fee, because otherwise we wouldn't get any resources. Well, the other resources are then different grants and projects which we apply for, but it definitely requires a lot of our energy and time, and it's not anything what is really granted. It's just something what we just have to do our best to get this kind of funding for. So this is the way how private schools work here in our educational system. We currently have, and this is also something what is linked to our Czech educational system, we currently have 8 classes, which actually means that we have children from the 1st to the 8th year. And next year we will have the 9th year, which is the last of what we still call elementary school. Even though it sounds weird, I know, because in many countries the system is different. Our institutions are still called elementary schools, but they actually comprise of elementary schools and I would say junior high schools. So there are 2 levels of schooling. They are somehow differentiated. The first 5 years of schooling is really sort of elementary schooling, elementary education. And then the other 4 years, from the 6th to the 9th grade, the institution is still called elementary school, as in general, this is the status of the school. But of course, the level of schooling or the level of education differs from the elementary schooling, and it very equals more to junior high school or some sort of secondary level education. But it is still in one education. So when we want to establish a private school, elementary private school, we can either choose to have only those first 5 years, but then the kids just have to go somewhere, and it is quite complicated. And we just thought it wouldn't be fair for the kids to just leave them, to let them go wherever they want. The other aspect is that especially this lower secondary level of education is quite complicated, or the curriculum of this level of education is still quite vague and quite old-fashioned. And from my perspective, this is why I actually established the school. From my perspective, it's so comprehensive that it just demotivates a lot of kids. They just get lost in the educational system. They are expected to learn everything on the highest level, but the reality is that the kids are not all future academicians. They just don't learn everything on the highest level. Whenever they don't learn anything on the highest level, they are sort of punished for that, because they get lower marks, they get lower results, they are criticized. It's just something what is expected is just to learn everything at the same time on the highest expected level. And I just think that it's it's not really appropriate to standard individual development of a person. Well, so we next year we will have actually our first final year of the whole school, because the kids then leave us, or the students then leave us after the 9th year, and they will go to different secondary schools. There are a lot of different secondary schools here in the Czech Republic, so we'll see where they will get. And it will be definitely a kind of challenge also for us. And of course, this is one of sort of benchmarks for us. So the parents, the public somehow perceives us through the perspective of our students' success, which we will see next year. For the first time, basically. Well, we have some other evidence of our students' success, but this will be something what is very important here in the Czech Republic, that the kids succeed in their transfer to secondary schools, because the transfer is actually sorry, I cannot find the word. I hear a lot of noise behind the door, and I kind of find the word now. Well, before the kids transfer to the secondary school, they have to pass. They have to pass admission exams. So it's not just something what is natural. They really have to take exams. These are state exams. They are quite strict, quite complex, and they have to pass so that they really get to secondary school. So it will certainly show the quality of our education when they pass these exams. Well, this is one of the symbols. Anyway, Pascal would like to say something. So just go ahead.
It's just a small question, and I'm going to forget afterwards, and it's directly linked to what you're just saying. Didn't you have any students who had to leave since the creation of the school, like because they were moving or because their parents decided to take them to another school? Did it ever happen so far?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, I would say it happens to a certain degree every year for different reasons. You know, sometimes after the fifth grade or fifth year, the kids have an option to move to pass admission exams and to go to the kind of comprehensive secondary school, which actually lasts for 8 years. So this is a specific kind of secondary school which starts after the fifth grade of elementary school and finishes with the A level or the final exam when they are 19. But this is only for certain kids, and it really expects children or students who are on certain academic level. So some of the kids go to these schools, and then of course, well, we have certain values, we have certain system of teaching, we have certain expectations from the kids and also from the parents. And as we are a private school, and they chose us, the parents actually choose us. They were the ones who decided to actually place their kids at our school. Then from time to time, we just basically realize that our expectations and our visions and our values are somehow contradictory to the family values, and this happens from time to time. So yeah, this is another reason why the parents leave. Or of course, there have been a few kids, not many, just a few, who just had to leave because the family situation changed and they couldn't afford to pay the school fee anymore. Or yeah. So yeah, it happens every year. On the other hand, every year we have a list of families or pupils who would like to apply for a place at our school, not only to the first grade or first year, but to other years, because they are somehow unhappy and not very satisfied at their schools. So the numbers and the groups of in the classes sometimes change, but we really try to care about the changes, and we just don't admit or accept anyone because we have the experience that it causes difficulties with the group dynamic, with the class atmosphere. So we really want to find, when we accept people to higher years, we always want to find the kids and families who are in agreement with what we do, basically. Yeah. So we always have this kind of training weeks. So the kids come and we just tell them, it's not just about us, it's also about you, because you have some ideas, you read something on the website, you just have some idea what the school looks like, but come and stay in the class, have the experience, learn with the kids, see what they do, and then decide whether you really want to join us. So the admission to our school is always some sort of process.
You said 8 classes. How many students do you have in each class approximately?
Well, the first classes, which are which is the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, 8th year, have lower numbers of pupils, because these were the classes which we started with, and actually our pupils who started at our school in the first year, these are 6th graders at this time. This school year, 6th graders are our students, our pupils who have been with us since the beginning of their education. The 7th graders and 8th graders were groups who were sort of inherited from other schools. That was just a complicated process. I'm not going to, it's not important and relevant for our talk here, but the numbers are limited or lower for this reason. So in our classes, we have 18 kids, 18 or 19 kids.
Okay.
In the highest years, we have about 10 children at the moment.
Okay. Just to have an idea about the number of students you have in total. And when you say that you invite the students, do they spend a whole week with you? Because we have one day, but we don't have a whole week.
Yeah, we really try to have them here as many days as possible. So the week is ideal. Of course, in some cases, they cannot stay the whole week, but usually we really insist on being with us more than one day, because one day is very short, and sometimes, you know, sometimes even the schedule is very different on one day and then on the other, or the whole program can be different because the kids go somewhere, they spend the day somewhere else than usual. So usually we ask them to stay with us for several days. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Welcome. And maybe I should also say that we haven't got any parallel classes. We only have one class per each year, which is not only our decision. We would like to have more children, more classes in each year, because we really have more children who we could accept or receive here. But actually, the Ministry of Education had this limitation when they, because we have an accreditation of the Ministry of Education that we can be official elementary school. This is also a process which is, you know, country or state specific, and our legislative specific. But they only actually allowed us, when we got the accreditation, they only allowed us to open one class per each year. And in fact, at the moment, we lack more space where we could actually have the classes and the kids. So as we are growing, we still keep looking for new places and new rooms, new spaces for our children. I know that, and I would love to see your new laboratory school which you built in Paris. I just heard about it. I never seen it, but I hope I will one day.
Yeah, I hope you'll come.
Well, anyway, I'll just move a bit further from what we are. Just looking for that small arrow which moves. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, this is just. I just wanted to summarize who our pupils usually are. Well, from the most general perspective, I would say that we have kids from all different backgrounds, and the classes do not really differ that much from classes in standard state schools. We definitely do not have many pupils from socially disadvantaged families, because they have to pay the fee. So this is definitely the limitation. On the other hand, the school fee is not that high. So we just have, you know, pupils from average families with average income. We do not have only pupils who live in certain conditions. But the family background is just on a whole spectrum, I would say. We also have kids with different culture and social background. In each class, there are some bilingual kids or multilingual kids, I would say. And then we sometimes specify what kids or what families, what parents are interested in our school. We usually say that and these are parents who require some sort of innovative education for their children. So they really want something different from what they experienced during their education. And in fact, even though the parents attended the elementary school maybe more than 20 years ago, the schools have not changed that much. When they visit, sometimes they visit the schools where they went when they were children, and they just say that everything was the same as it was when they attended the school. So this is a group of parents who really think about the whole education. They have their opinions, they have their visions, what the education would look like, which actually means that they expect they expect us to get more involved in the whole education process. They like discussing with us the ways we teach, the ways we create the curriculum, which has its advantages and also disadvantages, because as we currently have more than 100 pupils, you can imagine that each family has their own ideas how we should treat their children, and we have to have some more general and approach which fits to all those children. We cannot just accept all their ideas, so we have to compromise, negotiate, discuss. But of course, well, we really value the communication with parents, and we know that this is something what they also expect from us. And I'll give you, yeah, Pascale, you want to say something? So maybe
It was again a question directly related. I think we could have a whole session about parents and school relationships in the type of school that we have, but it's not my question. My question was about the rate of students with important special educational needs, to see if you have a balance or if you have a majority of students with that, because it's the risk in this kind of school that you get a lot of demands for this type.
Yeah, I was just about actually to comment on it, because the second group of parents who are often interested in our school are parents of children with all different learning difficulties or special educational needs, because they are pretty much aware that their children would face all different obstacles and difficulties at standard state schools. So they just feel that our school would be safer and more accepting place for their children. But the majority of our pupils do not show any severe or special educational needs. I think the ratio of students without educational needs without special educational needs, of children with some minor special educational needs, and then of children with some more severe special educational needs is quite balanced, and it's more or less the same as at state schools. Well, sometimes at state schools they just do not really pay so much attention to certain special educational needs. We really try to help the kids, and we work with them a lot. And yeah, we also we support them individually, but also as I say here, we also have teacher assistants in many classes. In one of the classes, we even have 2 teacher assistants, because there are the group is quite mixed and quite heterogeneous, and there is a boy with autism spectrum disorder, and there is another boy who has some innate physical difficulties, so he needs support at certain points and need to be followed by an assistant. But the majority, as it is in standard population, doesn't really show any apparent and any serious special educational needs. It's just difficult to say that, because I just feel that all the kids, everyone has some special needs, but yeah, it's just something what is normal. But as when we really refer to special educational needs such as autism and dyslexia and ADHD and some sensory difficulties and all this, we really have classes where there are like 2-3 kids of this kind, and sometimes there are more kids, sometimes fewer, and yeah, and we we do not reject such kids. We just always have to think carefully about the whole dynamic of the class. And this is something what we also explain to parents, because if we only accept kids with all different special educational needs, it would be actually contradictory to the kids. We wouldn't really help them, I would say. We just need heterogeneous classes with all different kids from all different backgrounds, with all different needs or educational needs in general. Because otherwise we couldn't guarantee the level of education, basically. So we never say you cannot attend our school, you cannot come, but we always think about some ways how to balance the whole class, and how to keep it as productive as we want to. And in some cases, especially in higher grades, when where the classes are already established and we already have their pupils with special educational needs, when parents ask about an option to find a place in the class, and they say that they have a kid with more severe educational needs, we sometimes tell them that it is not really possible to accept such a kids into this class, because the class is actually too too affected or too overwhelmed with its current history, with its current specific situation. So it wouldn't be actually fair to accept another child with more severe difficulties. On the other hand, for instance, this year we accepted a boy into the 3rd year, and we also had to find an assistant to him, and we really had to think about how to find his place in the class. And it was a class where this boy just fitted, and we didn't have any any arguments why he couldn't attend such class. Yeah, so this is a mixture of our pupils and also of families who are in contact with us. I only have here a couple of more details, which are first these are just this is on this slide here we have just so I just wanted to summarize. This is something that we also have written in our curriculum, our main values, or something what we built on, which is quite general and nothing you wouldn't know. So it's just to make the picture complete, and I'm not going to really elaborate on these topics too much, because I can imagine that you know, or you know what I mean. Well, but the first point actually is the cognitive approach to education, which I'm going to talk about a bit more later. Then, social emotional learning, well-being of pupils and teachers is also an important value for us, which sounds a bit vague sometimes. All schools say that. They write it in the curriculum. We just think that once the kids and also the teachers do not really feel safe and well in the school environment, they cannot learn and they cannot teach properly. It's just the emotional and social well-being is just the other side of the coin of the learning process. And once the people here wouldn't feel really well and wouldn't have certain level of well-being, then the process of learning or even the process of teaching are impossible, because they would be too overwhelmed with their emotions, basically. The other thing is that obviously, and this is something what I've just thought about when I mentioned the kids, the pupils with special educational needs, it is tightly linked to differentiation and individuation of the whole educational process. And this is also somehow linked to participatory learning, which we try to value, and we really are interested in our pupils' opinions and in what they think and what they like or what they would prefer. Which actually also means that we have a nice and quite functioning school parliament, as we call it here. I know that in some countries, this group of pupils is called, for instance, school council or something like that, but we call it school parliament. So, and they also get involved in the whole educational process, and they represent all the classes. Well, and then what I really find, what I often emphasize, we really value lifelong learning, which is not just a matter of something what we would like to show to our pupils. It's also important to show to the pupils that learning is not linked only to schools. It is something what we do all the time, even outside the schools and all, and in totally different contexts. But the other thing is that we really emphasize the learning of our teachers. And I often say to the teachers that once they expect the pupils to learn, they have to show them that they also learn. It's not anything what is finished just because they already graduated from the school. And yeah, if the teachers don't want to learn, how could they persuade the kids that they would learn? Yeah, so this is also something what is important for us. And here I have some more details about our school, just in more general. These aspects have a certain impact on our education or on our curriculum, but also I just thought that you may find some of them interesting because these are programs or characteristics which are international, sometimes also international, and they definitely have their place in the whole curriculum. And I will also refer to these some of these programs or some of these aspects when I talk about the cognitive approach to education. Well, the one thing is that we always have tandem teachers or tandems in elementary classes and all elementary classes. So from the first to the fifth grade in all classes, there are teachers teach in tandems, which is something you may find it just obvious, but it is quite specific here in the Czech Republic. There are not many classes, not many schools where there are tandems. So in fact, for instance, in the fifth grade, where we have 2 assistants, there are sometimes 4 adults. Well, quite often there are 4 adults who actually teach or work with the kids, because there are the assistants and there are also the teachers. As the kids get older and their subjects are more specific, more subject specific, basically, their learning is more subject specific, then not all the subjects are taught in tandems, but there are a lot of subjects and a lot of classes which are also taught in tandems, and we find this system very useful, and even though it's sometimes challenging, I know that our teachers really appreciate work in tandems. It actually requires more investment and more energy from us as the management of the school, because we have to care for the tandems. It's sometimes, it's not that easy to spend the whole day, every day with the same person who is your partner in the teaching process. So we really have to always find people who fit with each other, who can cooperate, because it requires intense cooperation and intense communication between the partners in the tandem, and which is not something what we just can request. We have to care for it, and we have to support it as the management, and to see and to make sure that the tandems really work smoothly and in cooperation, not in conflict. Yeah, but sometimes I think that some of the teachers at our school just cannot imagine they would teach alone, which is very specific in all other schools. Yeah, but they really work in tandems quite a lot. Well, and this is just something very general. Then I'm mentioning here, I'm referring to several projects or programs which we have here and which we foster here at school. The one is a word school, which actually it's an international project, but for some reason their website here in the Czech Republic is only Czech. I don't know. They have no adaptation to English. I'm sorry about that. But it's actually, we have a certificate that we are the so-called world school, which actually means that we involve global topics and sustainable development in our curriculum. And we often actually involve different activities and different learning topics of this kind into the lessons. So when we plan plan lessons, a lot of our lessons are somehow linked, or monthly projects or different activities of students are somehow linked to the values and to the principles of this word school. Because as we have the certificate, we always have to prove. We also have to prove that every year we do activities, or we get involved in activities, and we really elaborate activities which are linked to the topics they focus on. So this is something about some more general word values. On the other hand, I don't know if you are familiar with the program of Skills Builder, this is actually originally a British program, and it's a program on development of social skills, and we use it and we apply it in all our classes. And the nice thing about Skills Builder is that it's very systematic, and it just structures the social skills into 8 main categories and also it introduces the whole development of social skills. So it's easy for us to follow the whole system, and the kids really learn a lot, and all the kids in all classes actually use this program. The other program is from Finland, and it's called KIVA, which is an abbreviation from Finnish. So don't ask me what it really means, but it's an anti-bullying program, and it's also a complex program which we implement here at school. And it was adapted and localized here in the Czech Republic, but it's originally from Finland, where it was it was actually implemented in all schools, guaranteed by the Ministry of Education. It went through a whole process of being an evidence-based program. The other topic which we really focus on is career guidance, which is not just a topic of our last years, but career guidance is involved in the whole curriculum. And actually the curriculum of our 6th, 7th and 8th graders, and also the 9th graders obviously, is tightly linked to career guidance, because the main idea of modern career guidance is to become aware of our strengths and of our skills, and of what we can do with this in life outside of the school. So it's not just about choosing certain job, because nobody knows what the kinds of jobs our pupils will have in 10 or 20 years. There will certainly be jobs which or professions or expertises which we cannot imagine at the moment, which are linked to all the changes in the world. So career guidance is something what actually also had a big impact on creating the curriculum for the older kids. Yeah, and then the entrepreneurship is also a part of our teaching and pupils learning. Communication and cooperation with parents is fundamental. We've already talked about that. Yeah, and then something what is tightly linked to the system of laboratory schools. We cooperate with all different research institutions, and either we apply their innovative approaches, or we offer them the field to carry out some research here, or as you know from all our laboratory schools. But apart from research institutions such as universities, we also like to cooperate with business institutions and art institutions and all other professional organizations, because we just want to show to our pupils the whole range of options and the whole range of fields where they can really apply their knowledge. The main an important aspect of the whole education for us is to show the children that they are not learning just because their teachers say so or because of the school, but they are learning for their life, and all they learn can be applied somewhere outside of the school. Yeah. So in fact, well, one of the ideas, one of the reasons why we established our school was that we want to really inquire, innovate, get involved in new educational approaches, and also share it with others. So, but we sometimes try to publish some of our experience or discuss it in the public. But this is how it is. Anyway, here, if you want to, I just included 3 QR codes here. I can't remember which one is which, but one of them is to the original British Skills Builder website link. The other one is to Kiva program, which is also in the English version of the Kiva program. And the third one is to the Word School, which is unfortunately only in Czech, but I believe that your smart computers and your smart internet browsers will offer you the option to translate into your languages. So these are just the 3 QR codes of 3 programs which I mentioned in the previous slides. So I'll just keep it here for a while, so if you want to link it through your mobile.
Will you share the presentation, Lenka, so I can send it to you? Will you share the presentation afterwards?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I can. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so if you want to ask anything so far, you can, because this is basically the end of the part where I'm introducing the school. Now I'd like to move to the cognitive approach to education more. But if you want to ask anything or comment, share your ideas.
I can share a private comment that I received from Marlene, from the pedagogical director of the lab school, and she was saying, but we could do the same presentation, hearing what you said about parents, about matching the values with the expectations and trying to answer everybody's needs while not having too much effect on the other students. I mean, taking into consideration both the individual students and the whole class. So I think she's going to talk about that. But she was saying that we could do exactly the same presentation. We have really a lot in common.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I understood that already from your presentation, which was the first one in the seminar about a month ago, and also when we talked about our schools, or about when you talked about your school, I could see a lot of overlapping. Yeah, we have a lot of in common. Well, it's it's probably also a matter of being a private school, and also, well, it's also some kind of proof that we are both laboratory schools, so we have certain specific values and certain specific approaches which also direct us to specific forms of communication with parents and work with children and all this. I know that also from our teachers' experience from job shadowing at your school 2 years ago, that they really observed and appreciated a lot of approaches which were quite easily implemented then here, because it just fitted into the whole system. And in some cases, they only just arrived being relieved that you did the same thing, they could see the same thing which we do here, and it was sort of proof for them that we are on a good track.
Yeah. Hi to everyone, and sorry for being late, but I think I catch the most of the really interesting and I don't know, inspiring presentation, even if I don't know if we should be relieved or worried that we're facing the same challenges, and especially currently about the students with special needs and the fact that maybe as a private school, but also because of the fact that we are trying to rely on research, some parents kind of see us as savers. That we are going to make everything possible for their children, and we have to manage those expectations from them. So I think that's also something we are working on. And I was especially interested, of course, about the fact that you have tandem teaching or at least co-teaching. We call that co-teaching at our school because well, that's my doctoral thesis, which is almost done, and it's quite rare as a setting. And I wanted to know if it's as it is in the US, pairing a special education teacher with a general education teacher, or if those the teachers are both general education teachers.
They are actually both general educational teachers, so they only in most classes they either are both special education elementary school teachers, which is much easier. Then of course we unfortunately we cannot afford to have two subject teachers per each class in the higher levels, because there would be too many people and too few students. But there are tandems of teachers who teach similar subjects. And sometimes in the higher years, for instance, in the 7th grade, a special education teacher joins the subject teacher and they teach in tandem this way, because there are kids who have special educational needs. So in the higher years, it sometimes occurs that there is this kind of tandem, but on the level of elementary schooling, which means the first 5 years, all the teachers are just general teachers, and if they need any support in a way that they have kids who have special educational needs, who have more individualized approach, and even more systematic support in general, then either my colleague or I, as school psychologists, go there and help them, or we have a special education teacher who actually works here for the whole school. So she sometimes can also join the class. And in some classes, we also have the assistants who just work with specific kids who really are entitled to have the assistant and they need it for the whole time of their lessons. Yeah, so it's a mixture. But in general, when we hire new teachers to elementary school level of classes, they are always general teachers. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes many people in one classroom, as you previously said, and I think it's also one of our differences comparing to the public French educational system. I'm also curious, how did you come to follow that path to have two teachers in a classroom? Because it's more expensive as a school, even if we are a private school. It's not the usual form of schooling where you have one teacher in charge of the whole group. What made you decide that?
Well, we always wanted to create or to establish a school which was innovative and which just did not do everything what the others did. And one of the very common complaints here at our schools, when the teachers talk, or when the headmasters talk about teaching children with special needs, they always say there are too many kids, too many pupils, and only one teacher, and they cannot do everything. It's impossible to include the kids in standard classes. So we just decided from the beginning that we don't want to leave just one person per class alone, and we want them to cooperate. And well, that was usually schools complain that too many kids per one teacher cause difficulties. On the other hand, teachers are sometimes very cautious about having an assistant in the class. This is just the general situation, which I know from my other work, where I work in NGO with the kids who really have learning difficulties, and many teachers actually cannot imagine that they would work in tandem. It's a sort of, you know, weird situation, because I always say that teachers work with people all the time, but in fact their work is very individualized, and many teachers here in the Czech Republic, as they teach in the classes alone, they just cannot imagine that there would be anyone else who would see how they teach, who would follow them, who would cooperate with them. And I just thought that we wanted to do it in a different way, because I don't find this system of one teacher per class really useful, and yeah, that's basically it. That was the reason.
Okay, and if I may add one question, how do you pair the teachers? How do you decide that they'll be a good team, or that they want to work with each other, or because that's also kind of, well, here some of our teachers, and you can also find that in the literature, they said it's like a job wife. Because the cooperation is so strong on a daily basis, and sometimes involves emotions and the relationship with the students and so on. So I think there's something huge at stake when you consider pairing them.
Well, in fact, since we are still a young school and our team keeps growing, meanwhile, some of our teachers have left on maternity leave and for other reasons. So when we hire teachers for the first year, which we and we hire new teachers, it's sometimes just accidental that we find just these two teachers. But we always, when we look for new teachers and we have one who we have already chosen, then when we look for the second one, we already keep in mind the first one who is already here. If one of the teachers is already in the here with us in the team, and we need to find another one, which was, for instance, a case last year in the third grade, because one of the teachers left for maternity leave. Then the new teacher it's also not only admitting new children, but also hiring new teachers is a sort of process. So we first talk to them, we have an interview with them, but then they come and they teach in a class, and we really want them to experience the class, and we want to see them, how they teach or how they interact with the children. And once it should be a tandem teacher for someone who is already here, then we also want the tandem teacher to participate in the decision making. So we ask the tandem teacher whether he or she really feels that this person would fit with him or her. So this is another part of the process. The other thing is that sometimes the tandems just start from the beginning, and we just hire the people, and we know that they both have to go to a certain class, because usually to the first class, if we do not have other teachers who could teach there. And in this case, but not only in this case, we really observe the cooperation of the tandems. So usually in a month's time after the school year starts, we have professional interviews with sort of CPD interviews with all our teachers. And we also ask them how they experience the tandem, whether they need any kind of support. And we have already had some situations when we had to support the tandem teachers, or in one class we even had to ask an external professional to support the tandem, because they got into certain conflicts, and we just thought that it would be fine to to have someone who is not involved in the class. So we basically invited a supervisor who worked with them and helped them to negotiate the situation in the class and to settle it down. And fingers crossed, at the moment, everything functions very well. And actually, the teachers really appreciated our care for them and also our support, including the support, which actually meant that we looked for someone else, we found someone who could mediate their situation and who could help them. Yeah, and they always have the option to ask again. And everyone knows that if they don't feel really comfortable in the tandems, it's something what may happen. It's natural. We are just people. But they just have to communicate about that, and we have to try to find some solution which is acceptable to all of us. Yeah. So that's there are many options, and it is a process, definitely. As I say, it has its I mainly see the advantages of tandem teaching, but there are certain disadvantages, and you always have to be very cautious about your teachers, about the people in the team, about the way how they work or how they communicate, how they feel in the tandem, and so on.
Yeah, that's absolutely and definitely troubling hearing you, because it's like hearing ourselves in a way. I don't know, Pascale, if you'd say that, but really we try to find the same kind of solutions and the same human work in a way. That's wow.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to the second half, but Romeo here in HSS has also a question.
Yes, hello. I was wondering about the Kiva program because I'm working on the empathy classes I want to install in France right now, and I was wondering two things. How does it work in your school? How do you make it work? And I wanted to know also if you have some results, some positive returns in your school and more generally in Czech Republic.
Well, actually, I'll start from a more general perspective. Kiva program was actually localized and adapted to the Czech Republic from Finland, which was several years ago, and it was done by non-governmental organizations who we closely cooperate with. And they also adapted and localized here the Skills Builder program. So first we started with the Skills Builder, which is a more general program supporting the development of soft skills. And then as they only finished about 2 years ago with the localization of Kiva program, so we started with the Kiva program only last year. And for, the big advantage of the whole program is that it is really comprehensive. And it just covers all different aspects of school life, but with the accent to anti-bullying system. So well, from the system as it is here, and also it is in other schools who use Kiva, we have something what we call Kiva team, which in fact these are 4 people from our team, my colleague who is also a school psychologist and one of the founders of the school, and then 3 teachers who are involved in the Kiva team, and they were educated. They went through courses organized by the organization who is in charge of the Kiva program here in the Czech Republic, and then we just decided to implement the Kiva program from the beginning of the school year. So last year we just prepared for Kiva, but we didn't implement it, or we didn't start it just in the middle of school year, because this is something what is quite comprehensive, and it has really impact on the way how we communicate, on the way what we also include into our lessons. because well, it impacts a lot of aspects of the whole education. So when we make these big, well, not big, but when we make these changes in the curriculum, we always start at the beginning of the school year. Even though it may seem that we waited too long, but we really feel that it is a complex decision, and it is something what everyone from the team, from the teachers, all the teachers need to understand and be really aware of the principles of the program. So then, before this school year started, we had a two-day actually trip somewhere out of Prague, and we stayed there, and we had our Kiva team prepared lectures for our teachers, so that everyone got familiar with the Kiva, and we also discussed the system, how we would implement Kiva at our school. And then it started from the beginning. There are specific, there are lectures of Kiva program for each class in each year, and these are non-specific prevention lectures. So it only it just opens the topic of bullying or some kind of inappropriate behavior in a class. These lectures are led by class teachers, but the Kiva team is can support the lectures if the teachers need to. And one of the aims of these lectures is to make the kids aware that bullying is something what may appear, and they have to well, be careful about that, but also they have to communicate about it if it happens, because and they have to open it somehow. So these Kiva lectures take place every month for usually within one 90-minute lesson, or twice for 45 minutes. And then if really some kind of bullying appears, even though we hope it is never really severe, the Kiva team is in charge to deal with that. So it's not an issue which should be sorted out by class teachers, but the class teachers cooperate with Kiva team, and all the kids know that Kiva team are the people who are in charge of sorting out these issues, which is actually a big relief for teachers, because they really do not have to think about all these different scenarios. Sometimes the relationship of the teachers is different from the Kiva team teachers. So it's and if in case the Kiva team member is also the class teacher, which obviously is, then this teacher is never a member of the Kiva team who deals with the bullying situation in that class, if you understand. Yeah, and the whole program is actually very well structured, and it offers methodology, strategies how to deal with the kids, how to show, how to talk to them, how to give them feedback on their behavior, how to So I think the teachers who are involved in the Kiva team are really enthusiastic about the program, because it's transparent, it's clear. The parents know about the program. We introduce the program to the parents as well, so they know we have this program at school. The kids know about that we have this program at school. So then it's, I would say it's much more user-friendly than if you just think about all different ways and approaches how to deal with bullying, and you just do it, randomly, just because you have to do something. Yeah. So it really gives us some background and some structured strategies how to deal the situation. Yeah, I don't know if I answered all your questions, but
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lenka. I suggest that next next part of your presentation. We leave you without interrupting you because I see it's already almost 2 o'clock, and there might be another seminar just after us.
Okay, I'll try to be quick and I will share the presentation with you. Sorry. Yeah, I just thought that 2 hours would be too much, and it's not that case. Well, in general, what is cognitive approach to education? I would just say that it applies principles of cognitive science into the field of education. This is something what I really like, because I have to say I work with this approach not only at school but also with my clients at the NGO, and some sort of it's something what is very natural to me, and it's my favorite approach. And as I often work with kids or with pupils, also with adolescents or adults who have different learning difficulties, it is obviously linked to not only to educational psychology but also to cognitive psychology. And what I really find very important, and something what and I miss this aspect of education in many schools, and well, maybe also in general curriculum of universities who prepare future teachers, is that teaching needs to involve the knowledge of cognitive science, because when we teach, it's not just about didactics, it's not just about methods and tools, but we really have to understand how the pupils think and how their cognition develops, because otherwise it brings a lot of limits to the whole educational process. So the cognitive approach of education is just, from my perspective, it's something what should be very natural, but I just feel that we still have to emphasize it somehow. And when I discuss different issues of our pupils with our teachers, I can really understand, I can really see that I have to explain to them how the cognition functions, because they, unfortunately, even though they are well educated, they are very nice, they really think about their pupils from very broad perspective. Nobody in university in their in their university program actually taught them thoroughly about the cognitive processes which impact learning and which can also impact their teaching. So so these links between cognitive psychology, education, and neuroscience and all this is something what is quite sometimes new to them, and sometimes we really just have to understand. I can see that we have to explain to them, and we have to just take several different perspectives to think about one pupil, because this is because their learning, the learning of each pupil is affected by the way their cognition is developed, by the way how the cognition just functions. Because when we talk about cognitive processes, it really means that this is something what what is directly involved in the learning process. But even though it sounds so straightforward and clear, I can see that teachers often are not aware about the details, the aspects, the functions of cognitive processes, which are crucial for the learning process. They often just focus on on the behavior level, I would say. They can see how the kids work with their tools, how they use their textbooks, their study materials, how they learn. Once they don't learn according to certain trajectory, they get confused, and they sometimes don't know why the kids don't learn. Sometimes it's just normal because everyone is different, but they really cannot explain all these changes in the learning process in the context of educational or cognitive psychology, which is something what we really want to bring into the whole the whole educational process here at our school. A very similar approach to the cognitive approach is just something what is called mind, brain, and education approach, which has an abbreviation MBE. So you can I will involve also, I forgot about that. I'm sorry. I'm really terribly sorry about that. I forgot to involve references into the presentation, but before I share the presentation with you, I will involve also the references on the last slide of the presentation. And mind brain education approach is just, I would even say it's just the synonym of cognitive approach of to education, because it's just an it's an interdisciplinary framework that really combines findings from neuroscience, cognitive psychology, but also education, because it is important to know the didactics, to know the study materials, but not only this or only that. We really have to combine and find some overlaps with all these spheres, because then this is the way how our brain learns, and this is the way how we should think about the whole learning and teaching process. In fact, it's quite funny because in English we say learning and teaching, which means two different processes, but in Czech, the learning and teaching are words which are very much similar. They just differ in two letters when we talk to teaching and when we talk about learning. In Czech language, there is just a difference of two letters in these two verbs which describe totally different activities. And when we really want to understand how learning fits to teaching, or how teaching fits to learning, that is better to say, how teaching fits to learning of pupils, then we have to consider also the information from neuroscience and cognitive psychology. And all this, which actually means that I just summarized here some main principles. Something what is also what needs to be considered when we talk about mind and brain and education, or about cognitive approach to education. We certainly have to know something about brain plasticity. I'm not going to go into details now, but the main principles of all the whole approach is not just about knowing cognition. It's about knowing that the cognition develops differently in different for different pupils, that emotions affect learning a lot, and how emotions and cognitions are interconnected or affected, how they affect each other. We should know a lot about memory and retention, because sometimes sort of tease teachers when I teach them, and I ask them to explain to me the difference between learning, memorizing, and thinking, because I often feel that in many cases the tradition is that learning equals memorizing, sometimes even memorizing by heart, and quite a few cases of thinking can be observed in many classes, because it's something more complex than just completing tasks. So this is something what we really want to do in a different way, and think, well, the process of thinking is involved in the name of our school, so we have to refer to it even in our curriculum. And the other important principle of cognitive approach to education, which needs to be considered, is the process of metacognition. In other words, thinking about thinking. You are familiar with this process, but the whole self-regulation and monitoring of our cognitive processes, of the way how we learn, is something what is also not so common as I wish it would be. Yeah, because it's just about to ask questions. How do you know? How did you come to the answer? What helped you to learn? How do you learn? What your learning preferences are? What strategy you used? And all these questions just make pupils think about the way how they thought about the topic. But even when I sometimes ask teachers how they think about solving a certain problem, they usually just use the words which describe the process of teaching, but not the process of learning and thinking. They explain the system of teaching the kids how to elaborate certain problem. But what is important is to become aware of how people think about the problem, what helps them. It's actually quite funny because once you teach, you usually teach subjects and topics which you are very much familiar with. And this actually means that all these processes come very naturally to you. Teachers often say they don't have to think about the way how to apply language, how to count, how to use different mathematics processes, because it's just something what they really know very well. But to be a good teacher means that you really have to think about the way how to mediate the whole process of thinking to your pupils, because this is the only way how you can somehow guarantee to a certain level that the kids really understand the problem and they can really apply it again. That it's not just one direction information transfer, that teachers say something and the kids receive, but then without discussing the metacognitive processes or without just discussing any cognitive processes in the process of education, the pupils become only black boxes. You never know what you really put into them, and you never know what will come out of that. Yeah, so we can imagine, but if I say it very briefly, it's all about asking more questions to our or giving more questions to our pupils. It's about the way how the teaching is not just about transferring the knowledge, but about thinking how to make the knowledge understandable to the pupils, and discussing the information with the pupils, because this is the way how they can really understand, how we can see that they really understand, and we can also see that they may understand it in a different way than we expected, and we have to just discuss. We don't have to only discuss. We don't only have to discuss about the learning problems, but we have to discuss the thinking issues, how they think about the problem. So this is just how we can sort of generalize the main principle. Also, do you want to ask anything? Because I'm not sure if I'm clear enough. No.
Well, for me, it's very clear. Thank you.
Well, if we want to just summarize how to apply such approach in a classroom, then, well, it sounds weird to say that we create brain-friendly environments, but it actually means that we really think about those information from neuroscience which can really help us. One of the things which I really find very important is that it's an evidence-based fact, so we should just all accept that the brain plasticity exists, and that all the kids who sit in the class have certain potential. They can change the ways how they think, they can change their cognitive processes, they can develop their cognitive processes. We never know where they reach their limits, but we have to really believe that they have the potential to learn, even though it may not look that way at that moment. They just may need more support, more specific guidance, more specific scaffolding to learn. But something what is what I just feel that it's sort of myth that sometimes teachers just say he is just average student. This is just, from my perspective, this is just labeling, and you never know what the child will really reach. And everyone, and this is also something what is emphasized in cognitive approach to education, everyone has a potential to learn more or to uncover their options. which actually is in close alignment with developmental psychology, which is not only Piaget but also Vygotsky's approach, and the approaches which actually say that there is always some zone of proximal development. The use of formative assessment is just something what is a natural way how to develop learning, how to support learning, and what is important in the classroom is to train executive functions, I would say, which is also something that I sometimes lack at some schools. And well, not many teachers really know and are aware of what executive functions are. So I often emphasize to them that executive functions are apparently, according to certain to current research, the executive functions are probably more are very better predictor of school success and achievements than IQ. Yeah, because the executive functions are more complex and they really involve the processes which follow the whole the execution. So if they have to execute certain tasks, then just easily we can say the IQ is not enough. This is just a number, or this is just a level. This is a certain level of cognition. But if the executive functions are not well developed, then it's difficult to focus, to organize oneself, to make plans, to complete one's tasks and all this. So this is also something that we often train here with our pupils, and it's really very interesting to see how they become more self-organized. Planning is a big issue here at our school, and we often want the kids to plan their activities. We help them. We don't rely on them. We guide them in the planning process, but we really want them to learn how to plan their activities, because this is something what is very important for the whole rest of their life. You know, even though they can't remember the capital cities of all European countries, they can survive with this lack of knowledge, and they can look it up if they need to. But when they learn how to plan efficiently, this is something what really will help them to survive in their adult life a lot. So this is one of the main topics. And when we talk about cognitive approach to education, this is an approach which really addresses all different neurodiversity aspects. So that's actually something what we already talked about, that we have children with all different learning difficulties such as dyslexia, ADHD, and others. And we have to think about the way how they learn. When I talk to people who have dyslexia or ADHD, I often tell them, you just learn. Dyslexia means that you learn differently, or ADHD means that you learn differently. You can learn, but we always have to understand what where the weaknesses of such kids are and what their strengths are, and we have to think about the way how they can learn to the highest level they can at that moment. And this actually also means that we have to understand their cognition, their cognitive processes, because they are rather specific. That's for sure. Yeah, dyslexia or ADHD limits certain processes, but it doesn't really mean that they cannot learn in a different way and they cannot be very successful at what they do. Just they have to find their appropriate way how to learn, how to process information, how to solve tasks, and all this. Yeah. Cognitive approach to education definitely requires interdisciplinary at school, I would say. So we really emphasize in our curriculum not only teachers being involved in the process, but also psychologists, special educators, but also experts from all different various fields. Sometimes it's really interesting when we have teachers, especially teachers for the higher years, who are experts from different fields, and they also teach here. But some of our teachers are here only part-time, work here only part-time, and they of course they have to understand the whole educational process, but I think it's really useful that they have the experience from other fields, that they are not only limited to the school situation, because when people spend the whole their life at schools, it can be sometimes tricky or even dangerous, I would say. It's actually nice to go outside of the school and see what the life looks like in other fields. And when we talk about the cognitive approach to education, and we really want to make children or pupils think and apply their cognition, then it's sometimes important to bring problems from all these fields to the educational process, because also these experts can say what features, what skills are valued outside the school. So sometimes it's much easier for them to identify what skills and what cognitive processes they would really expect from their pupils, because not everything what is really written in the textbooks is what the pupils will need when they leave the school. So it's sometimes easier to discuss with these people from other fields, the education, what cognitive processes need to be involved in their profession, for instance, or in the field where they work. Yeah, and if they apply it and use it in cooperation with us as psychologists, with the teachers, when they all apply all this in the educational process, then it's fruitful. Yeah, it can help us. And here I have some examples of what we do and how we foster the cognitive approach to education in our school, which is one of the ways how we foster the cognitive approach to education is what I've just been talking about, which is the cooperation with scientists. And yeah, this is actually the topic which I think Pascale focused on it in her talk, because the cooperation with scientists is lovely on one side, but it can be also tricky, or sometimes it's really difficult to to find a way how to fit this scientific projects into our curriculum, but we really do our best to find the links how to make research possible at our school, and the way how the research can be implemented at our school is that the pupils, especially the older ones, get involved into the research, that they really somehow participate in the data collection, they learn from the scientists. On the other hand, when the research is conducted with the younger ones, we really want we really emphasize that the pupils also need to learn something new from the research, that they really have to gain some knowledge from the research. I included here 3 logos, which are logos of EU projects, and I find this quite a nice and easy way how to implement research, do new things. And for instance, the adaptive project, which is one of the projects which the school is involved is about adapting and applying a reading application to support early readers, especially those who struggle with reading. So we collect data, we actually assess our pupils to see what their level of reading is, which helped our teachers. It helped us to get knowledge of more thorough information about the pupils. But in fact, it also led to identification of pupils who need more intense support. And we now use specific reading app to help them, which they like. And on the other hand, we still collect data for the people who actually use who try to adapt this app in the Czech Republic. Yeah, the other EU projects are the COTIC project and the COTIC 2, which is a follow-up project. And our school was one of the partners in COTIC 1, and in COTIC 2 we will be also partners of the main partner of the project. So, and it's actually it focuses on inclusive classroom, but also on collaborative or tandem teaching, which is actually nice, and it's something that we can collect data, we can collect the information. It's all connected with our work, but still we get some results which can be used for the whole project. If I am just very brief in explaining that, but you can, if you look up the website, the COTIC 2 website is about to start. A COTIC website exists, so you can look it up if you wish. Well, anyway, one of the approaches which I really like is the inquiry-based learning, which actually means that the pupils themselves are involved in research projects, especially in the science subjects, and then it's so natural that they really develop their cognition through the research, through the way how they collect information and learn about new things. It's not just about receiving the information, but about the about conducting research, basically. I was only involved here 2 projects. You can read about the projects when I share the presentation with you. But actually, both these projects actually meant that the kids started, the 6th graders or 5th graders, to be clear about the age of the kids, started with some sort of data collection. And both these projects actually ended up with a direct impact on a school environment or surroundings. They really changed something in our surroundings, which I just feel that they learned a lot. And they could see that what they learn affects their further actions. It was not just something what they did in a class, but they really went outside the school. They collected data. Both these projects were about sustainability, but still it was. You can even see the pictures here from the project, how the kids just created those drinkers and then put them on trees around the school. Yeah, but they can, when they pass with a tram, one of the tram stops, they can see their bushes and flowers which they really planted there. And they planted it there not because they wanted to make the place nicer, but because they knew that the microclimate and the level of draft will get lower. That it really has the impact on the microclimate. Yeah, so that's one of some of the examples of how we I feel that we really apply the cognitive approach to education in practice, because they really have to think. They really have to elaborate their problems. They have to they have to activate all their cognitive processes to think to carry out such inquiries or such projects. Yeah, and there are. I have some other examples here, but these are mainly examples from our school, and which is, for instance, their multidisciplinary projects, which they really work on for several months. And I just tried to involve what they really learn, and I wanted to emphasize that when they carry out such longer projects, they do not only learn about the topic, but they really have to learn also these skills, which are either soft skills, but also executive, they develop their executive functions just because they do the project and because we really, sort of force them to plan, to be organized, to self-regulate themselves, to think about the way how they can carry out the project and all this. Well, and maybe the last bit which I would like to mention is the dynamic assessment approach, which is a part of our whole school assessment, which is here on the previous slide, but I'm getting a bit faster. And the dynamic, well, maybe look it up. Dynamic assessment is just a very complex system of assessment, which I'm really fond of, and I use it a lot also with my clients in at the NGO where I also work. And to say it very brief, to explain it briefly and in a few words, it's just an approach where you do not assess because you want to know the level of anything, but you want to know the potential of your child. So dynamic assessment, the main idea of dynamic assessment is to see how you can support a child and how you can develop their potential and what their potential is. In other words, the dynamic assessment, as this is also what we sometimes say, it assesses the zone of proximal development, not the current level of development, but the zone of proximal development. And this is also something what we try to apply here, especially when we as psychologists go to classes, when we need to understand what the difficulties of our pupils are and how we can help them. Yeah. And the last slide, if you haven't just got bored and exhausted by
We're not at all bored.
Well, the last slide there, which I would like, oh, come on, I'm just clicking on it. Yeah, if you are interested in the cognitive approach, I would also like to invite you to the international conference, which will be held here in Prague in July, and it's organized by the International Association for Cognitive Education and Psychology, which is for me it's a sort of umbrella organization which where I learned a lot, and I always meet there very interesting people who inspire me and who inspire my further work. So yeah, I'm happy to
very much, Lenka. It's fascinating, and I wish we would have more time to discuss. I think it's really interesting to discuss how we implement these ideas of cognitive education in practice in the classes. And as you rightly pointed out, teachers, even when they're very good teachers, are often not trained in this respect. So there's probably a lot to do, and maybe we can organize a new session later in the spring. So far, since we're going to have to be out in 1 minute, I'm really sorry we don't have time to discuss more, but I sent you the link for the next, the announcement for the next session, which will be on the 16th of January. And we'll have one of our colleagues from Ankara, so we'll have someone from Turkey. We're going further and further east, and hopefully later on from Thailand as well. And so I thank you very, very much once more. We'll be in touch in the next few days. And if you can send me the presentation, I'll share it with the participants.
Yeah, I will. I will send the presentation, and I will just add the last slide with references there, which when I created the presentation, I always reminded myself I should put the references there, and my fault, I didn't, but I will. Oh. Thank you very much for your attention, actually.
And have nice holidays, and see you soon. Bye-bye.